Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Torey and today we are working on my October daily album for story 14. Today I am documenting a virtual paint night I had with one of my good friends, and I will be ink blending a background and using these two cards here from Tracy Reed Designs. These were from the 6x8 signature pack and I just kind of printed them to be very small. So what my plan is here today, I'm going to be using a horizontal line stencil from Pink Fresh Studio, and I've got several ink colors here. Two variations of orange, two variations of pink, and then I will also pull out a purple color a little bit later on. And what I'm going to do is I'm using a slimline stencil, so it's not going to cover the full 5 inches of my page. So I'm going to kind of ink blend this so that it's a little bit wonky and offset. So as you can see here, I'm doing my orange and I've got this kind of hanging over the edge, and I'm not really going too heavy towards the middle. I'm leaving that more as if it's kind of gradiating and disappearing off, if that makes sense. And I'm going to add a little bit of that darker orange to the edges. I will then just kind of flip my stencil over. I'm not going to clean it because I was lazy and didn't feel like it. So I'm going to flip my stencil over on the other side and do the same thing with my pink color, where I start with that lighter color towards the middle, but I don't go all the way to the edge so that I won't have that hard line, is kind of what my intention was here. And then I will move on to the darker pink color and go a little bit darker around the edges. Once I finished this, I did kind of feel like the middle was a little too empty. So that's when I decided to pull out the purple and ink blend that purple in the middle. You'll notice once I pull up the stencil that I made sure that these were not perfectly lined up. For all 3 colors, they're all going to overlap each other a little bit and nothing is perfectly lined up, which was intentional and my plan. I am using this 12x12 scrapbook.com silicone mat, and I really like to use this mat when I'm stenciling because it kind of holds my stencil down, and it was like a freebie with one of my purchases, so I didn't have to purchase one of those sticky mats to do my stenciling on because this will hold the stencils down. And I also use it when I'm ink blending like really small like die cuts, that way like they kind of stay in place. So moving right along, I'm going to pull this card out, and I'm actually going to use my X-Acto knife and just slice down the card on the kind of like solid lines there that separate the card into 3s. I'm going to make 2 cuts with my X-Acto knife and turn those into pockets. I'm leaving about 1/4 of an inch on either side of my line. And then I will come in with some foam adhesive just to pop that up a little bit. I definitely should have thought a little bit more, I guess, about the order in which I was doing things for this spread, because there's several steps that I take after I add this foam adhesive that would have been so much easier for me to do prior to adding the foam adhesive. So I'll do a little bit of stamping and also adding a flip up with that piece of vellum, and like both of those would have been significantly easier if I had done them before I jumped into the adding foam adhesive portion of this. I also don't have any 1/4 inch foam adhesive, so I've been cutting this foam adhesive down so that it fits roughly 1/4 of an inch, and it's a pain. It's so annoying. I really need to get some 1/4 inch foam adhesive. The pink ghost paper that I'm using here, like I said earlier, is part of the Tracy Reed Designs. It's the Haunting collection, and this is one of the 6x8 signature papers that I just printed out at a much smaller size. I also printed this particular paper on vellum. So I do have a printable vellum, and I always have that linked in the description box below if you're interested in it. I love printing on vellum. Vellum is just one of my favorite things, like of all time. So I am going to use a piece of washi tape to kind of create a hinge to have that fall over the card that I'm going to be using to hold my photos. And like I said, this would have been much easier for me if I had done the hinge before adding that foam adhesive. I tried to overlap it a little bit, but I put that foam adhesive so close to the edge that the washi tape just kind of peeled up. So I'm going to try and trim that off here and then just trim the vellum to match the size of my card. Here's another situation where I'm skipping ahead and probably making things more difficult on myself. I am going to end up using the Stanley Alpha from Kerri Bradford Studio to stamp my story number on this spread. And I should have stamped it before I took all of this adhesive off and actually stuck this card down to my kind of a background page. I will end up like opening it and flipping my page over, and it works out fine, but it would have been easier if I had just stamped prior to adhering everything down. So I am going to see here, like I'm gonna decide how I want my number to be done. I pull out the Stanley Alpha, and I'm just going to place both numbers, the 1 and the 4, on a acrylic block and kind of offset them a little bit so that they're not straight, because I just feel like offsetting things makes everything a little bit more spooky and more fitting to October. So I like to do it a lot more during the month of October, I've noticed. And I'm using the Close to My Heart archival black ink and just being very careful when I stamp this down so as to not smudge everything, because that would have been really inconvenient. So I managed to get it pretty well. And then I'm going to kind of flip that up, and while it's drying, I'm going to stamp Virtual Paint Night in the last little section that is like visible through the vellum. This again would have been a lot easier to do if I had done it first, but I guess in this video I was just thinking of things after the fact a lot. I'm not sure. But I'm stamping this in a way to try and make it as kind of not necessarily centered, but I started virtual on the left-hand side, and then I'm going to stamp night backwards, starting from the right-hand side, so that I can stamp paint kind of overlapping both of those in the middle, if that makes sense. I'm then going to pull out my roller date stamp and just stamp the date that this virtual paint night took place down at the bottom right-hand corner, and then kind of second, third generation stamp off my roller pad there. The last thing that I'm going to do for this particular spread is just back up each of these photos. I really, really love the premium presentation matte photo paper, but sometimes I feel like it's a little thin and that I'm going to like rip it, especially if I have it in a manner where I'll be pulling it in and out of something. So I have a piece of scrap pink cardstock that I'm just going to paste on the back of each of these photos just to give them a little bit more structure and stability. And then I will likely go ahead and place my journaling on the backs of these photos whenever I decide to do that or decide what to write. I'm not sure yet if I'll be placing it like on the back or just filling in the rest of the labels, but I think, knowing myself, it'll probably be on the back of these photos. Now that I'm watching my video back here, I also think that it would be really cool to add some tabs to the top of each of these photos so that it kind of indicates that they can be pulled out, but I'm not sure yet. Let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts are, and if you made it to the end of my video, leave me a little ghost emoji. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!